Hey,
It's the abstractionist.
so basically, I had to start this video over. I think it's going to show up upside down, and it's not. The camera's not over here; it's over here. So this video is going to be about like my approach to reading. I think I kind of started to mention it in my like November wrap up, if I'm correct about that. I like reading in public. I still, you still over here. I am interested in reading in public. I really enjoy reading in public. I like, because I like using my decks. And I kind of feel like a personal practice doesn't allow you to use your decks, especially if you have like a bunch of them. Um, Over the lifespan of like your relationship with the deck, like I'm not, that's probably another topic for another day. I don't know about having a depth year because if you have so many decks, I kind of feel like a depth year is kind of like, it's like helpful because you connect with one deck deeply, but it's kind of like, well, what's the point of having like the other like 85 decks? You know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like a depth year helps if you have like 10 decks or something like that. A depth year really, I don't feel like is conducive to what you're trying to do if you have like a whole bunch of decks. Like, I don't know, like, there's something about that just, you're kind of like purposefully not interacting with decks under the guise that if you interact deeply with one, then like it's somehow better. But it's just kind of like, well, eventually you'll never really ever interact with the other deck. You know what I'm saying? So for me, I like using my decks. I like going through. I like once in a while just shuffling them, stuff like that. Like keep the energy fresh between them because, I mean, there are decks that I have, and I don't want to have like all of these decks and I never like look this one deck's play. If that's the case, we can just go ahead and like sell it or give it away or something. Like if I'm not interested in it, then give it away. And I kind of feel like a lot of people, I feel it's gonna be rude. I don't think people are invested enough in their tarot practice or tarot thing as they think they are. And I think on some level, if you want to be a student of it, you're not as in there as you think. And I can say that as somebody who's not as in there as I think. I'm a more intuitive reader. I'm not necessarily a book reader. This fan is getting my fucking nerves. Hold on for a sec. Yeah, like I feel like if you have a bunch of decks, you really need to use them. And I'm not saying you got to use a deck a day, but I feel like you got to have a plan. And a plan or like some sort of activity that you interact with these decks because I mean, I don't feel like watching. I think we're out of that. We're this side of the tarot community. The other side is talking about twin flames and stuff like that. I still watch some of that stuff, so I'm not really judging too much anymore. But this side had their whole thing where people was just like, you have all these decks, and how could you possibly like ever develop a relationship because it's like that nobody's using them. Like that was pretty simple. You just bought the decks because there was some sort of perhaps addictive quality to it, and then also you wanted to be in the loop with people who they were doing the same thing, trying to keep up with them. I think when people are honest with themselves, that's what a lot of people were doing. That's what I was doing at one point. But the thing about it is, I read. So a lot of the people, they don't read or they spend too much time actually reading books instead of reading their cards. And that's another thing that people don't hit on. I feel like people, they spend so much time with the book knowledge, they don't learn the practical actual reading knowledge, actually sitting there and reading for someone in their face or online or through email, whatever, of written reading. They not doing that, and as a result you feel like your tarot practice is shit because it is. but you're not interacting with your decks. Like, I kind of feel like for 2024, like, maybe y'all need to just do away with the depth year and actually just fucking read. Like, deep dive into reading. Depth year with reading, and just read with your cards. Because I feel like reading the book and looking at the color theory and the symbology, all things that I want to do. But doing that, I kind of feel like, especially if you want to read for other people, if you don't want to read for other people, you just want to read to yourselves, more power to you. This video isn't for you. But if you want to read for other people, you're going to have to get into people's face and fucking read. You're going to have to get up, go somewhere, invite your friends over, whatever, and actually read for people. And I kind of feel like people be so scared. There's two types of readers. There's a psychic reader, the one that's pulling on energy that's not necessarily just associated with the cards, but they can use the cards. And then there's people who are tarot readers who use that foundational knowledge, book knowledge, to read the cards. You got to figure out which one you are. I kind of feel like some people may be watching me that want to read for people. You just want to have to get out there and do it and go from there. I feel like your personal philosophy about reading, or how you read your process, will start to develop as you actually read for people. Because if you ain't never read for nobody, how the fuck you gonna know? Like, you know, like, how you gonna know what this is if you never read for nobody? And I'm talking about yourself. How you gonna do it if you've never read for anybody? You know what I'm saying? How are you gonna develop the confidence? How are you gonna know, like, start to intuit what decks to bring to readings, what decks to not, right? Because I have personal decks that I don't use for nobody, right? Some of them I may have in the past, and I realized, oh, this might be better suited for me. So let me just go ahead and put this over there, and you ain't never seen that shit again. You'll start to learn that when you actually read. Some of you guys are just using the book journey as a distraction to not read. And you don't have to read professionally full time. You could, like, I don't do that. I read at markets, but I like it. And so it allows me to use my decks. I read on here, on YouTube. I like it. I get to use my decks. I don't read on Instagram just because I kind of feel like the formatting on Instagram is kind of boring. And I don't like going, like, I like aesthetically pleasing pages that kind of have the same palette and there's a curation to it, but I kind of feel like I don't want to look at a page that's just readings all the time. So yeah, because I don't want to read all the time. So I don't want to see readings all the time. I want to see, like, something else related to that. Maybe astrology, maybe a book, maybe a class, maybe plants, maybe something. You know what I'm saying? My Instagram, you know, there's a lot of people who read that I follow, and they have a lot of blocks of just reading, but I don't watch that shit every day. So there's that. But yeah, you're gonna have to get out there. You're gonna have to read. You're gonna have to learn how to read. You're gonna have to develop a philosophy and process for reading. But you need the practical, like, actual experience in reading. So I would say the best advice would be, if you don't want to read for complete strangers, read for people who are closest to you or who ask. Another way would be to go on YouTube or Instagram and do readings and go from there. But don't let 2024, the rest of 2023 and 2024, be a year where you want to read for people and you do not, because you don't feel like you're ready. I feel like there's some people in the tarot community, it's not really a fucking community, it's a bunch of people online, who just happen to have, like, a similar maybe occupation at times, pursuit, intellectual, otherwise, but you know, you need to have studied this and that. It's just like, okay, yeah, sure, because there's two types of readers. It's like the ones who are psychic, they can pull up other shit that the people who are just reading may not be able to, because they're dealing with a certain skill set also, right? And I feel like some of the people that intellectualize tarot kind of look down at the people that are more on that lane. That's your issue, not mine. Now, a little bit about me. I thought that I would be one of those like uber like quantum leaping, type like readers. And I'm not. When I read, I'm very practical, like action oriented. I'm not necessarily like overly long winded. I'm not necessarily the concisest, but I am just not fantastical. Like, I'm just not. Like, you need to do like practical things, and I don't know if that's a Saturn return thing coming in, right? Like, I used to watch a lot of like, and some of like, this is a rant, but some of the shit on here, particularly the love side, it's just like so fantastical. It's just like, who is in the bottom of the barrel, like, with these situations? Like, you see the titles, you listen to it, it's just like, whose life is this fucked up? A lot of people apparently, and they love that shit anyway. But I try to make it like practical steps you can take, insight, perspectives. I stay away, ironically, from the predictive elements. It's kind of funny, like you go to the tarot people for predictions, and I'm not really a predictions. I can just give you insight into what I'm seeing and go from there. I'm not going to tell you 3 days, 3 months. I try not to do timelines. I try not to pull in a bunch of people either. So, there's that. I've had a few readings about relationships, but surprisingly, people come to me about career stuff and just general advice. And I feel like that's why my readings are more practical. If it was romantic, I do see the practicality being there, but I think that perspective would start shifting into something that is a little bit more, I don't want to say healing, but helping, therapeutic in a way, I guess you would say. And so, yeah, like I haven't had too many of those like relationship type things. Things that I don't read. I won't really read specifically about like cheating, adultery type things. I kind of feel like, I don't really care about this. I've never had someone do a twin flame. I'm grateful for that, because I'd be like, what am I pulling in? I think I had one person who should have been clear when they asked me the question that they wanted relationships, but she said was like general. I'm like, okay. And then she said relationships, and I didn't pull up like actual relationships for her. And I think she was disappointed, but it's just like, ma'am, like specificity is like everything. Yeah, like be specific. Like if you want a specific question answered, ask a specific question. That might be that's another video. What questions or how to ask a tarot reader. But yeah, like it's a few of them that had like relationship things that they've asked me about, but the overwhelming majority have been like more career focused, starting new things focused kind of jump. So yeah, I think start reading for yourself if you want to. I will say that takes a little bit of time, but if you can read for yourself, then it's pretty good. Me, I know the kind of person that I am, right? And so I want answers a very specific way, and I don't get them, and I'm the client from hell. So read and read some more, and you can read the book, but until you start using your cards, you're never going to feel connected. And part of the reason why, like I said, I'm going to bring it back to what I said. Part of the reason why a lot of people feel overwhelmed with their decks is because they don't use them. And I mean, I did this another one, Tarot Stagnancy. That was another video that I did. You got to use them. But specifically, this is a video for people who want to read. You have to use your decks. You have to start interacting with them. You can't just have pretty decks on the shelf and say you have 5, 10, 30, 100, 200 decks and not use them. You can't. Like, eventually you're going to get frustrated and throw away, donate, discard a whole bunch of things. And those could have been potentially like relationships, energetic relationships that you were building. And even if you never kept the deck for 10 years, you only kept it for like 1 or 2, the work that you're doing by picking up and interacting with these things, right? This rotating, revolving door of decks, you get to know different flavors, and you just have to keep that energy current. It's the same way for like altars. That's another thing too. If you keep your altar stagnant, energy doesn't flow through. You have to clean up stagnant energy for it to move. Reading helps doing that if you want to read. Actually reading. Not reading books per se, but if you're going to read it, you got to put that knowledge into what you're reading. Yeah. So thank you for watching this like ramble. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.